Welcome back, everybody. My name is Gammatrap, one word, and I'm going to do something here that I think more artists need to see. I'm going to show you a process of a video that is going to have a lot of pivoting. Now, pivoting is a technical term that we like to say. Sometimes you might say it's, renegotiating the image, starting over, whatever. I'm not going to start over this image, but in this image, you're going to see multiple instances where I change something kind of drastically. And I think this is extremely important for many artists to see. And you're also going to see something interesting here that you might not see very often from me anyway, and that's line art. I don't usually do line art. I mean, I do depending on the style that's needed, but most of the time, I usually like to paint big in big brushes. But anyway, yeah, I'll tell you why line art in a minute. But a little context here. This piece is a Night Elf Warlock from World of Warcraft. I would say it's a commission piece, but it's not actually that. Sometimes I like to open up like, hey, I need to do a warm-up piece, because I've got a big project coming up and I need to make sure I'm like on the top of my game. So I will go to the, internet, like Twitter or whatever, and I'll be like, hey guys, send me a character that I can draw for a warm-up piece. And I wouldn't normally say you should do free work. As a professional in the industry, I'd much prefer everyone get paid for their work, but I do tend to do a lot of free work if, in this instance. But so I got a bunch of characters from different games and stuff, but one of them was this Night Elf Warlock from World of Warcraft, and I haven't done a World of Warcraft like character piece in so long. And I love the aesthetic. I love how stylized the game is, and I love Blizzard's take on just their environments and their outfits and stuff like that, and their class identity for a lot of this stuff. So I really wanted to it spoke to me for a few seconds while I was deciding if I wanted to do it or not. So I ended up going with this one. Now for Warlocks, I'm not sure if any of y'all actually play World of Warcraft, but for those who do, you probably know Warlocks are the magic casters who summon demons and stuff like that. So for this piece, I wanted a sort of action piece, with like a little bit of movement, leaning in. Is one of the terms that people like to tend to say for this kind of stuff, which it's your characters make like an action movement where they're like in a diagonal pose or forward or dynamic or something like that. But it's one of those. And I made sure there was like a demon, Void Walker technically in the background. But you'll notice the character image that I got on the left. That's the screenshot that I got. That's all I have to work with this character. I don't know this set. I don't actually play World of Warcraft all that much. So a lot of this is guesswork. That's kind of why the line art is in place. So I started doing the basic shapes, and I threw in some basic color with multiply layers and a little bit of overlay layers. And I started doing a little bit of facial rendering because it's sort of like my okay, keep going. You like this part. It's rejuvenating to me to every so often hit like an area of high detail, like metal or a face or something like that. But a lot of this stuff wasn't making much sense, and that's because I couldn't really see the sides of the shoulder armor. And this is something that like modelers will come in issues with all the time. They can't see like the 3D of an image of a drawing. So your modelers, if you're a concept artist, for example, they'll often ask for like breakouts and different poses, usually T-pose, front, backs, and whatnot, so they can see from multiple angles, so they can model the items and the assets and the props in game. So this was all I got. So I started making this pose, and I changed the pose up just a little bit. I added the hand in the background there. I was going to have it originally holding like the scythe that the character is holding, but I decided like just a magical hand pose will work. But what that did is it changed the angle of the shoulders, which means it also changed the angle of the shoulder pad. And you'll see me come back to this a couple times. So I had to like sort of reinvent the shoulder pad. So the thing that I think is very important for artists to learn is when to sort of let go, when to know, okay, I know I've spent like an hour on this section. I spent a lot of time. There's a lot of sunk cost fallacy involved in this piece or this section of the piece. At what point do you think, I gotta get rid of it? I gotta paint over it. I gotta do something. And I think this is a perfect example of one of those situations. This happens a handful of times in this piece, but the big one I think is the shoulder, because it formed this sort of tangent and in the value sense, meaning that you couldn't tell where the shoulder, the arm, the back, and the background, and the midway, you couldn't tell where that began or it ended. So I had to fix it. I tried real hard to see if I can like paint it fixed, but you see right there, like I broke it off and shrunk it and changed the angle. And I'll do it again later probably. But like to make the whole thing make sense, like the shoulder armor wouldn't have stayed sideways if the arm is ahead of her, if the arm is like facing forward a bit. So you have to, re-angle things. And you have to ask yourself, okay, am I willing to put up with this bad or subpar product, or the design's not working out, the face doesn't look right, whatever, because I've already put too much time into it? And I think you shouldn't. I think you shouldn't put up with that. I think personally, you shouldn't feel like married to any one aspect of your piece. You shouldn't feel, okay, I've already done it like this, I'll just keep going, whatever. If you want your piece to be good, and this will separate the good pieces from the great pieces, or even just the mediocre pieces from the good pieces. If you want your piece to be good, you should not settle necessarily for subpar stuff. If you know that it's not right, if you know and it's bothering you, it's gonna mess with you the entire time you're painting anyway. So just fix it. You gotta zoom out a little bit. I flip the canvas constantly, trying to get a new perspective, because I was like, okay, how do I come up with this? How do I figure this out? Because the shoulder pad wasn't the only problem. It was also the colors. You might have noticed that the colors started out much brighter, and then they kind of went to this green thing, because the main things I had to change were the shoulders, the colors, and the forehead, the hair, essentially. And that's because I started working on them, and I just didn't like them. And it's rare for 4 different things to happen to the same piece, but it does happen. And because it happened in this one, I really thought it was very important to show you that sometimes you should, because the end result will probably speak for itself. You'll probably really like the end result, because I do. I really love this piece, but I would not have liked this piece nearly as much if I didn't say, that doesn't look good, I gotta redo that. If I put all the time in that, in the bad hair, the bad shoulder, whatever, it wouldn't have mattered. I would have been like, if I made the piece and saved it and sent it, I'd be like, man, I'd be really dissatisfied the whole time, and I wouldn't want to show anybody. I'd be embarrassed. But then I had to separate value-wise. I had to separate the foreground from the background, because they were kind of bleeding into each other. So I darkened the background, and I added a light ray on her head and hands to sort of show you what's in the foreground, what's in the background. Then I started working on some effects, little tilt shift blur, on the sides to add a little focal thing, and then bumped up the vibrance, and then that's the piece done. But I just want to hammer home, it wouldn't have looked anywhere near this cool if I had just okay, yeah, whatever, I've already done this, because this piece is a warm-up piece. I wasn't being paid for this piece. This piece took 2 hours or something, because I had to make so many different changes. Usually they only take about an hour, maybe less, 40 minutes. But because I had to make so many changes to feel satisfied, to feel good, and proud of the piece, it took me 2 hours. So all that time wasn't necessarily wasted. It was just used as a learning experience. It's good to try it. It's good to try the weird shoulder. It's good to try the weird hair, the weird colors. But at some point you have to know, this isn't working out. I gotta stop this. I gotta shift. I gotta position. I gotta pivot. The term is again, right? It's important. It's important that I do this. It's important for the piece, and it's important for me. And if you're being paid, it's definitely important for the client. It's just a very valuable lesson I think all of us should consider more often. And I'd like to thank you for joining me. And I hope you don't laugh at me too much, because I've made so many mess ups on this piece, so many screw ups. I think this was a wonderful opportunity for us all to get together and go, oh, okay, yeah, so we all do that. Oh, okay, got you. I see. I thought it was just me. No, it's not just you, it's everybody. I've been doing this stuff for years and years. I do this, I mess up all the time. But the important part is, if you can catch it early, you reduce how much work you have to do in the future, or how much cleanup you have to do. Sometimes though, you can't quite catch it early, and you just kind of gotta delete it, or paint over it, or fix it in some way. And it's gonna negate a lot of the time you spent on it. Now, if you're charging per hour, by the way, unless it's egregious, that's part of the process of making the piece, so you should still charge for that time, even if unless it's again, egregious. If it's the entire piece is wasted, you gotta start from scratch after you've already put 5 hours into it. That might be a little much. Maybe shave some of that time off. But if it's a piece, a hair or an eye or a face or whatever, the changes, the pivoting, that's a kind of a crucial part in making these things. So you should probably charge you should keep charging for that time. Again, how egregious it will be is going to be up to you. Like, you ask yourself, would you pay an artist if they had to experiment to find the best possible result? Because like, it's rare for a piece to come up flawlessly every single time first try. Sometimes experimentation is required for the best possible result. And again, I'm really proud of this piece and I hope you like it. I know the, I don't want to say client because they didn't really pay me, but I guess client, you know, the reciprocant, the owner, the Night Elf Warlock owner person, they liked it. And that was important for me. And I learned a lot of lessons. You know, I tried some weird things, and then now you get a video about pivoting and you finally get to see me do line work. I don't know, maybe that was cool for you. Maybe that's your style. If you like this kind of stuff, let me know in the comments down below. Leave a like if you liked it, a dislike if you disliked it. Subscribe to see more, and you'll only get better at doing the thing by doing the thing a lot. So click on a video you see on the screen now, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.